Hey everyone, before I start this video, I want to say that the style of video that I'm going to do today is a style that I've never done before. It's going to be kind of more of just a conversation. It's not going to be edited very well, at least. It's going to be a long video, and it's just going to be me rambling on and on about what I think is the greatest perfume brand ever created. So sit back, grab some food, and enjoy my ranking of every Amouage perfume that I have tried on skin. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I haven't made a video in a long time, but I'm going to make up for it by ranking every single Amouage fragrance that I've tried on skin. So let me start off. I have everything written out here. I'm going to exclude a lot of the things that either I've smelled once or smelled from a tester strip but never tried on skin. So here we go. The things that will not be on the list. Every single women's fragrance except for Guidance, Memoir Man, Search, Silver Man, Seal Man, Beach Hunt Man, and Jubilation 40 because both of them are on the way, but I still haven't tested them enough. Jubilation 25, Honor Man, Imitation Man, Myths Man, Portrayal Man, any of the essences, Purpose 50, Timber, Search, and Decision. So none of those are going to be on the list. I'm sorry if those were some of your favorites. But I'm going to start right now. In number 19, I have the original Reflection Man. Before everyone gets super mad that Reflection Man is last place, let me explain. First of all, this is an amazing fragrance. It's clean, it's soapy, it's fresh, it's mass appealing, but at the same time, it smells niche in the way that the ingredients are extremely high quality. So to put it shortly, the only reason this is in last place is because it is not particularly interesting to me. However, this is full bottle worthy, even though I'm putting it in last place, which I think goes to show just the craftsmanship that Amouage as a brand puts in all their fragrances. Like, I think every single one of these is pretty much a 9 out of 10 at least. So I'm not going to rate these individually like 9, 10, or 9.3. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put them in order from how much I like them. So number 19th is Reflection Man. And just a quick recap. I don't even remember if I said this or not. Every fragrance that I have on this list is a fragrance that I have either sampled, have a bottle of, or have worn on skin numerous times. So number 18th on the list is Reflection 45. And I do like this a little bit better than Reflection Man, but it's still just the DNA as a whole is not my favorite when it comes to Amouage. Reflection 45, as the name would suggest, is a 45% concentrate of the original Reflection Man. So the main differences that it has is the introduction of a bunch of resins. Reflection 45 smells almost identical to Reflection Man, but it's a little bit less soapy, a little bit more resinous, and a little bit more heavy to the nose. If you can't tell, that is what I like about the brand of Amouage, which is why I like Reflection 45 just a bit better than Reflection Man. But both of these are incredible. I would love to have a bottle of both of these in the future. But right now, these are number 18 and number 19 on the list. Okay, for number 17, we have another one that might upset you if I haven't already upset you. And this is Guidance. It's kind of more of a feminine leaning fragrance. Guidance is amazing though. It's beautifully blended. It's a little bit clean and soapy, but it's also sweet at the same time. It has a little bit of a suntan lotion vibe, at least to my nose. I honestly do like this, and I think that it's a great overall fragrance. The only reason I like it better than Reflection Man is because I think it has a little bit more going on. It's got a little bit more depth. But in my opinion, Guidance and Reflection Man are kind of like similar in terms of their mass appeal and their wearability. Guidance is kind of like the women's version of Reflection Man, and I know there is a Reflection Woman, but I have not smelled that. This is the only women marketed fragrance from Amouage that I've ever smelled. So number 17 goes to Guidance. All right, we're up to number 16, and this is the first full bottle on the list. This is Amouage Journeyman. So this bottle has been through a little bit. I got it secondhand, so I don't know what the previous owner could have possibly done to it. But Journeyman, in my opinion, is like the best oriental and spicy fragrance if you're just getting into the house of Amouage or just niche perfumes in general. What I mean by that is that Journeyman undoubtedly has that Amouage quality, the complexity, and the blend as some of their more challenging ones, but I think this is done in a slightly more mass appealing way. So it's not fresh or clean. Like, there's a Sichuan pepper note that makes it spicy, and there's a little bit of tobacco in here. There's some tonka bean and vanilla in the base, I think. And what it creates is this sweet, balsamic, and a touch of a smoky aspect of this perfume. The only reason it's not higher on my list is because this fragrance turns so balsamic on my skin that it almost smells like a barbecue sauce in a way. Or like a Chick-fil-A sauce. It's hard to explain. just because of that, it's number 16 on my list. And I do honestly enjoy wearing it. I've worn about 6 milliliters of this already. But yeah, the combination of the spices and the sweetness that gives it this little balsamic and kind of saucy feel is the only thing that's kind of preventing this from being higher on the list. Although I know this is one that a lot of people like. This is kind of a sleeper one. It's not talked about, but this is one that people think should be or would be the best of the house if it was talked about more. So number 16, we have Journeyman. Okay, we are now in the top 15. So just, again, I want to say every fragrance on this entire list is like a masterpiece to me. This was the hardest ranking I've ever had to make. Every single one of these could change from now on. I think 19 through 16 are pretty much set. I think those are solid. Those are set in stone. I think I'm really I'm good with those ratings. However, everything from now on until number 1 could pretty much be interchangeable. And with that being said, our number 15 spot goes to Enclave. Enclave is a very interesting one, and I think the only thing holding it back is kind of the way it was blended. That doesn't mean that this is a bad blend. First of all, I love the idea of it. The whole idea is about contrast. So it has this very sugary spearmint in the top, and then it dries down to be very warm and ambery. And there's also a noticeable contrast between spices and aromatic aspects. So the whole point of this fragrance is to be contrast between each other, but to somehow come together and work very well. And I'd say for the most part, that is true, and that is what happened. However, there's like a little bit of an amber syntheticness going on in the base and kind of just the whole fragrance as a whole, but mostly the base that is holding this back from being higher on the list. So if I had to describe Enclave to someone who has never smelled it, it's hard. It's one of the harder ones on the list, to be honest, which if you know anything about Amouage, you know that they are all incredibly complex and hard to describe. I would say that it opens up with a sugary, not toothpastey, but like more of a mint chocolate chip ice cream type of mint. There's actually spearmint and peppermint in this, so there's a little bit of a sharper mint, and then there's a bit of a sweeter mint. This is coming together with cinnamon, which you will not typically see in a mint fragrance. And then you get some vanillic aspects, and again, that like very ambery dry down. And the only issue with this is what I was talking about. There is this synthetic note called Amber Extreme listed in this, and it's a little bit of an ambroxany type feel. So it's a little bit sharp and piercing, but not in the way that like the oregano note is in Interlude. Like I think that's done really well, even though it's a little bit sharp. However, the sharpness of the Amber Extreme almost makes it seem like it's not well blended, although I know it is. So it's kind of that's like the only thing that's really holding it back from being higher on this list. But it's an amazing smelling one. This is another great Amouage fragrance to start with. It has like a very good, another contrast. It has a good contrast between being mass appealing and niche. So yeah, it's great. So number 15 on the list is Enclave. Number 14 on the list is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Amouage's first and oldest fragrance. This is Gold Man by Amouage. This is such a good fragrance. It really is. This is one that I'm going to get a bottle of sometime soon. It is a very vintage kind of pea-like civet and floral fragrance. And I know that sounds horrible. It smells a little bit old womany and a little bit old manny at the same time. So it does have this very 80s vintage feel. It was created in 1983. You can tell that by the blend, but I also want to note that, like, for example, this sample isn't from 1983. They're currently, like, they're always doing these reformulations. I'm positive that this is more tame than the original formulations because they might have even used like real civet. I'm sure they don't now, but either way, Goldman is incredible. And if you love Amouage and you haven't smelled Goldman, this is like a piece of history, so you really need to. To me, Amouage's Goldman is kind of like a better version of Raja's Diaghilev, and I know some people would call me insane for that. They think Diaghilev is like the greatest kind of civet chypre fragrance ever, and I don't know if you would call this a chypre, but it does have that vintage feel. The civet is amazing. The florals are almost a little bit of a honey floral, like honey jasmine. Just so smooth. Like the quality of this is unmatched. All of the Amouages are. You really can't go wrong with any of them. But yeah, Goldman is one that is a little bit challenging for some people, and I think that this is actually one of the more animalic perfumes from Amouage. Now, it doesn't smell stinky, but it definitely has that aspect, a little bit of a cat piss vibe in a way. And that's something that a lot of people are not used to. But if that sounds interesting, then definitely sample Amouage's Gold Man. It's a piece of history for the brand. And 14th place, Amouage's Gold Man. All right, before I continue, I do want to say that I'm pretty sick right now. My voice is kind of hoarse. I'm kind of winging this entire video because it's long. The editing process is going to be a little bit rough, but I'm doing this for you guys, so thank you for watching. I love the House of Amouage. It's my favorite brand. With that being said, number 13 is Lyric Man. So this is one that I'm going to have a bottle of sometime, but as of right now, it stays as a sample. So Lyric Man, a lot of people talk about it as being this very masculine rose fragrance. However, I completely disagree. What Lyric Man is a musky and very floral rose. So it's not jammy. It's not too sugary, in my opinion. It's a pretty heavy fragrance. So even though it's kind of lighter in terms of how it wears in the air, it's more airy in a way. It is a very dense fragrance all at the same time. So it's hard to explain. You really need to experience it yourself. But as someone who doesn't love musk, I had to kind of learn to appreciate Lyric Man. And there are a bunch of different types of musks. I actually do tend to like animalic musks more than the clean musks. And I would say that Lyric Man is a clean musk vibe. I don't love musk, as I was talking about before, but this is so well done. Rose is one of my favorite notes of all time. But the rose that I like is Jammy Rose, which you'll see later in the list. There's another rose fragrance that's a lot higher than this. Originally, this was going to be probably at around the 17th spot. I think even when I first smelled this, I liked it a little bit better than Reflection and Reflection 45. But I think I had guidance a little bit higher than this, and there were two main reasons for that. First of all, as I said before, I don't love musk. But secondly, during my first wearing or two, I thought this felt very feminine, and although I kind of agree with that still, like, it's called Lyric Man, this is honestly more of a feminine leading fragrance to me, and I don't mind feminine leading fragrances at all. I don't think fragrance has a gender. I think anyone can wear anything. The best way I can describe how this is a feminine leading fragrance is like, if I were in a room and I just got a whiff of the scent as someone was walking by and I didn't see them, I would probably assume it was a woman wearing this fragrance because it's like a floral musk. It has some very soapy rosiness. That's another thing. This is a pretty soapy fragrance, and like I said, this is almost like, in a way, not in terms of the smell, but like how it will be worn. To me, this is kind of like Reflection Man if you wanted added florals. So for hommages that are really easy to wear to school or wear to work or just out in public where you don't think you're going to offend too many people, Reflection Man and Lyric Man, I think, are probably the two best choices, at least in my head. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones looking on this list, but yeah, maybe Guidance, although that is pretty feminine leaning too. What Lyric Man really smells like is a light floral musk. Obviously, it has a lot of rose aspects to it, and then there's a really interesting kind of piercing and sour lime note in the opening. I think that kind of contributes to the soapiness of the fragrance, and I don't love soapy fragrances. That's kind of my least favorite scent profile. I don't mind clean stuff. I don't mind fresh stuff, but soapy things are just not the things I like to wear. When I'm wearing a perfume, I want it to be a little bit more unique. But the difference with Lyric Man is that, yes, the opening is soapy, but as it dries down, it transforms into this gorgeous musky rose. It's to die for. So for me, the opening of this is kind of on the lower part of the list. I would say it's between like 17 and 18 on the list. However, because of this dry down, it brings it all the way up to 13 on the list. So number 13 is Lyric Man. Okay, next up, number 12. This is probably most people's least favorite Amouage perfume that they've ever smelled. And this is the Original Purpose. So again, as I said in the beginning, I haven't smelled Purpose 50. So it's not on this list, but the Original Purpose is such an interesting one. So just a little quick lesson about perfumes. This is perfumed by Canton Biche, and he is probably the most famous perfumer of all time as of right now. You know, there have been countless perfumers, but right now, he's being hired to do all of the major houses' perfumes. So he's really known for two notes. Tonka bean, which he utilizes a lot in Jean Paul Gaultier fragrances. I know a lot of people don't like the tonka bean because it's pretty sweet. It's a little bit decadent, overly sweet. And then the second one, his more famous one, is Akigala wood. So Akigala wood is not a real wood, and I'm not a perfumer, but I do know that it's derived from patchouli. I don't know how it works. I don't know how you get it, but Akigala wood is a love it or hate it note, kind of like in Animal Oud. 50% of the people that smell it would die for it, and 50% of the people would die if they wore it. So this is kind of another version of that, Akigala wood. My best way to describe Akigala wood, if you would imagine finding a treasure chest from thousands and thousands of years ago and opening it, and there are like ancient spices in the treasure chest, and it's kind of like a pungent hit of spices, but at the same time, Akigala wood gives this almost futuristic vibe, this slightly metallic and medicinal vibe. I know this may not make sense to everyone, but like the air conditioning or like the carpets on Bullet Train, that's what comes to my mind, mixed with like an ancient treasure chest. So very hard to describe. It's a hate it or love it note, and Purpose utilizes a bunch of Akigala wood, and that is very polarizing to a lot of people. For me, I very much enjoy this fragrance. I think it's one of the weirder ones from Amouage. When I say that, that's insane. Amouage has some very unique, extremely interestingly blended perfumes. That's why I love them so much. I go for them when I want something artistic, and like another perfect brand of that is Zoologist. I absolutely love them, but some of them are even a little bit too much for me, and I think Amouage has that perfect balance between artisticness and wearability, and some people would disagree. Some people think they're disgusting, and some people don't think any of them are challenging at all. However, Purpose is one that I think a lot of people will find as one of their more challenging perfumes. My best way to describe Purpose is a very horrible explanation because it's such a unique perfume. Because that Akigala wood is so heavily utilized, it's kind of, in my mind, I'm painting two pictures in my head, right? Part of it is like what I was talking about before. It's this futuristic train flying through the sky type of thing. And then part of it is like pirate ships in the past, old wooden boards, and spices. And the combination is giving this weird, spicy, ancient, but also futuristic barbecue sauce type of vibe. And that sounds so weird. I think this is one of the more difficult fragrances to describe. If you smelled Marc-Antoine Barra's Ganymede, which Canton Biche also perfumed, there's a similar style of perfumery, mainly because of that Akigala wood. And that's more so in the beginning of this fragrance, and the dry down of Purpose is more of a spicy fragrance, is more oriental. But yeah, that Akigala wood note is very polarizing. It's not for everyone. However, it definitely is for me. So because of that, number 12 on this list is Purpose. Just missing the 10th spot is a fragrance that people were really annoyed at when it got released and when they first smelled it. Why is that? It's because when the creative directors changed from Christopher Chong to Ronald Salmon, one of the first things he put out was Amouage's Boundless. And objectively, this might be their best smelling fragrance. Now, the reason why so many people were upset, and it was mostly, the old Amouage heads that were really into Amouage in the 90s, in the early 2000s. Obviously, it wasn't everyone, but a lot of people, again, like what I was saying before, go to Amouage for complexity. And that's not to say that this is not complex, but it is much more of a mass-appealing perfume. Actually, I'm going to reword that in a way. I don't think Boundless is necessarily more mass-appealing than any of their other ones or a lot of their other ones, but the reason why people were annoyed is because they go to Amouage as a perfume brand that sets the trends that people want to copy. However, Boundless was one of many from Ronald Salmon that was kind of a trend-following fragrance. So people were mainly annoyed at this because the first thing that came to their mind when they smelled Boundless was Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. And there is a very heavy similarity between the two. At the same time, it's a big twist, and I think that this is the perfected DNA of that whole tobacco vanille type of fragrance. So like I was saying before, Boundless was more of a trend-following perfume rather than a trend-setting perfume. And that is the main thing that people were worried about with the change in creative direction between the two people. Christopher Chong, I don't know when he started his career at Amouage, but he retired in 2020, and he was known for making some of the weirder, the more challenging, the more artistic perfumes. And that was great for a lot of the niche perfume lovers. However, when Ronald Salmon came over, when he took over as creative director, his main goal was to expand the brand as much as possible. And in order to do that, you need to have perfumes that are marketed for every single person. That's not meaning that he's making boring blue designer fragrances. No. He said in his own words, and I'm not quoting this because this isn't word for word, he said that every perfume he makes, whether it's a new DNA or it's a DNA that's already been done, he wants to perfect it with the blend and the quality that Amouage has been known for since 1983. And I think this is the best example of that. This is not a new DNA. It's a tobacco and vanilla DNA. So if you have smelled Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille, this has a similar backbone. He hired the perfumer, I think her name is Corinne Vincent Spinner. I don't know if I said that right. she's made some very challenging fragrances from the house of Amouage. So another reason why people were a little bit upset about this release was because from the catalog of Amouage, combined with the perfumes that Vincent Spinner did, they were expecting this to be very artistic, and it's not. But what I can tell you is that this is an incredible smelling fragrance. So right off the opening, there's a touch of funkiness coming from a lot of resins. I don't have any of the notes of any of these pulled up anywhere, but there's a lot of myrrh, maybe there's labdanum, I don't know what it is, but an overdose of resins, and it's a little bit spicy. It's a little bit challenging, but not nearly as challenging as a lot of the other things. The main things you're getting is this gorgeous vanilla, and the vanilla is present from opening until dry down. And there is a tobacco in this, but it's not ashy, it's not smoky. It's a sweet, more so of like a pipe tobacco. So there's a little bit of like a cherry vibe to it, like a cherry pipe tobacco. And what that does is that gives almost a Dr. Pepper vibe to the entire perfume. The two main perfumes that Amouage Boundless is compared to is Tobacco Vanille and Raja's Enigma. Enigma Parfum, I'm not sure. There's like 20 of them. My best way to describe it is take Tobacco Vanille, that gorgeously smooth vanilla and like pipe tobacco, add a bunch more Middle Eastern resins, and then have this whole Coca-Cola Dr. Pepper vibe going on. And it's one of just the most enjoyable, easy to wear, but like amazing smelling Amouages on the list. And if you know me, the only reason this isn't higher on the list is because I do tend to like the more challenging perfume. This is still number 11. It beat a lot of the ones on this list that I love. I'm insanely happy to have a bottle of this. So for anyone who likes that vanilla, tobacco, and kind of Coca-Cola DNA, definitely check out Amouage's Boundless. Alrighty. Finally, after a long time, we have officially hit top 10. So we're only about halfway through the video, and number 10 is one of 3 interludes on the list. This is Interlude Black Iris. So Interlude as a DNA is one of my favorite and one of the most, I don't know if I would say challenging, but one of the most inspirational DNAs ever created in perfumery in the last decades, in the last 30, 40, 50 years. The only reason I have Interlude Black Iris as my least favorite one is because it has this weird thing in the DNA that I don't love about it. As a whole, Interlude is dark, it's smoky, it's elegant, it's regal, it's ashy, it's herbal too. It's herbal, and that is kind of the main thing that made Interlude. The oregano note is what pushed it to be the most inspirational and artistic thing that it was at the time. With Interlude Black Iris, it completely gets rid of that oregano note, and what it does instead is adds this creamy orris root. And the thing is, I love orris. Orris is one of my favorite notes ever too. The orris mixed with all of the other like heavy ashy spices gives like a burning grass accord, and there's something about it that's just a little bit challenging. So what's funny is Interlude Black Iris is kind of seen as the least challenging, the little brother of the trio. And I think it's the most challenging. And even though I usually like challenging, because of this, it's my least favorite of the 3. Now, I love it. Obviously, it's in my top 10. Like I said, from 15 to number 1 is pretty much interchangeable. All of these things that I'm talking about, I'm nitpicking like crazy. Every one of these is pretty much, in my books, like a perfect fragrance. Even my least favorite on the list, I would give like a 9 out of 10. That just goes to show how much I love the brand of Amouage. Because I have other 2 interludes on the list, I'm not going to talk too much about this because I'll go into the DNA later. What I do want to say is there are actually 20 fragrances in total, but I combined Interlude Man and Interlude 53 together because they're the same exact scent profile, just like they execute it a little bit differently. And I'll explain all of that later. But right now, we're at number 10, and number 10 is a beautiful, beautiful perfume, Interlude Black Iris. Number 9, this is a fragrance that I did not like at first, and I ended up falling in love with. I went through a 2 ml sample in like 2 days, just flew through it, and then bought a bottle of. And it hurts to see this low, but like as I was saying, all of these are pretty much just perfect fragrances. So any of these could be number 1, any of these. And with that being said, number 9 is Royal Tobacco. Overall, the general consensus was that this is a little bit too bold and too challenging for most people. In a way, I completely agree with that. The smell alone, this, again, like what I've said this so many times, all of these could be number 1. So the only thing that's really holding this back, because every time I smell this, it just makes me smile, it's the wearability. And I struggle finding a time to wear this anywhere, honestly. It's so smoky and it's so ashy, and it's resinous, it's deep, it's complex, it's layered. Royal Tobacco is kind of like how people describe Interlude, or the at least the original formulations of Interlude. I don't think Interlude is too challenging of a scent profile. I think Royal Tobacco is, but I absolutely love it. So Royal Tobacco opens with this chewy texture in a way. There's a lot of licorice, which is the first thing that people don't like. The licorice, it's so resinous. It's like a tongue tickling licorice in a way. It almost feels like you have your face in a bag of black licorice. The tobacco in this, it's not a leafy tobacco, but it's a very ashy and dark tobacco. There's so much going on here. There really is. But the two main aspects to the perfume is the dark resinous black licorice and the ashy tobacco. So it's smoky and it's resinous, and that combo creates a cloud of just an amazing scent profile, but it's very challenging. And one thing that makes it so hard to wear isn't necessarily the scent itself, but this thing is so potent that 3 sprays is like overspraying it, 2 sprays is pushing it, and then like for me, when I'm wearing something, I don't want to do anything less than 5 sprays. That's just, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to just go 1, 2, done. I like to have like 3 on the neck, and then like 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, I don't know, whatever. You get what I mean. When I wear Royal Tobacco, I want to be in a cloud of it. There are very few events and places where I'm comfortable with being in that heavy of a cloud of Royal Tobacco. And you could always say spray less, but no, if I'm wearing a perfume, I want to be immersed in it. I don't want to just half-ass the perfume in a way. But yes, this one is one of the more challenging fragrances from the brand. Looking at this now, I kind of want to put it higher on the list, but that's how I'm feeling about every single one of these. So right now, as it stands, number 9 is Royal Tobacco. All right, I'll take a little bit of an intermission. Got some water because this is a long video. We are now at number 8, and I have Amouage's Meander at number 8. So Meander was a blind buy. And it was a weird blind buy to do because of a couple things. First of all, I was looking at some of the notes, and it says carrot seed and vetiver, just some weird earthy herbal notes that, like, that's not the type of thing to blind buy. And I know that, but it was so intriguing to me, and I decided to do it anyways, and it turned out completely in my favor because this is one of the best that I've smelled from the brand. With a lot of these perfumes, especially with Amouage, they're so hard to describe. And you really can't describe them to someone who hasn't smelled them. So especially for this one, I can't describe it with notes. I really can't. So I'm going to describe it with a place, or like I'm going to paint a picture in your mind. And Amouage Meander is the perfect rainy day fragrance. You're in the forest, and there are creeks, and there's rain, and you can smell the damp earth coming up. But there's a little bit of a sweetness coming out through it too. And like everything about it is just beautiful. It's round, it's well blended, it's smooth. And the one thing, the main gripe that people have with this is that it's not a strong fragrance, but I think that's what makes it so special. Now, when I say it's not strong, that's not to say that it doesn't last. This thing lasts 8 to 10 hours on my skin, a couple of days on clothes, honestly. It lasts longer than most people think, but what is true is that the sillage and the projection are not very heavy with this fragrance. It's like, it sits closer to the skin. It's more of an intimate and almost meditative fragrance. That's like one of the things that makes it so special to me. And I think this is the perfect embodiment of a springtime fragrance. At least where I live. In the spring, it's really rainy, it's dark, it's cloudy a lot. There's still a pretty decent breeze, and it has some cold days. And I think that Meander perfectly fits that vibe. As a quick recap, it smells like a rainy day in the springtime. Soil is damp and a little bit wet. There's a watery aspect, not aquatic, it's not salty. So yeah, Meander, such a beautiful fragrance. One of the more common ones in the line. One thing I do want to note, the carrot seed note, it gives off the perfect amount of sweetness. So the vetiver is an earthy vetiver here. It's not smoky and it's not like sharp, but it's very earthy. But because of that carrot seed, it's creamy and it's earthy, it's smooth, a touch sweet. And again, the sweetness is coming from like a carrot sweetness, not vanilla, not resins. This is just such a beautiful fragrance, such a calming fragrance, and the perfect embodiment of spring where I live. With that being said, number 8 on the list is Meander. A lot of perfumes give you confidence, but sometimes there are perfumes that you need confidence to wear. And one of them is number 7 on the list, and it is Silver Oud. Silver Oud has a prominent note of Assam oud from the region of India. If you know anything about ouds, there are a bunch of different kinds, and it can go woody, earthy, sweet, smoky, animalic, fecal, all of these things. And the main thing about Assam Oud is its funky qualities. And there is a huge dose of funkiness in here. But the perfumer, whose name is Cecile Zarokian, she is such a talented perfumer. She's not new to perfumery, but she's been getting a lot of popularity over the last couple of years, primarily with perfumes like Ani by Nishane. And also she made Royal Tobacco from Amouage that I had as number 9 on this list. So when she's allowed creative freedom, which she clearly had the creative freedom for this perfume and for Royal Tobacco, she knows how to make an intense and long-lasting, complex, deep, dark, and layered perfume, but she also knows how to make it wearable enough to where it's not like impossible to wear. The oud here it's stinky. I'm not gonna lie, it's stinky. A lot of people would describe it as fecal. I don't know if I would say fecal, but it is challenging. And what makes it harder for some people to palate is that there's a supporting note of castoreum, which is like the beaver butthole gland, and that is challenging. It gives a little bit of a funky, musky, oily, and leathery touch to the perfume. So stinky Assam Oud, funky castoreum, it sounds like a nightmare to a lot of people. But then there's like the most gorgeous vanilla I've ever smelled that's kind of supporting these notes and holding it from being too much. It's such a gorgeous perfume. When I first smelled this perfume, I gagged. In fact, I thought I was going to throw up. At the time, I was not introduced to oud. I had only been smelling designers. I knew about animalics, and I knew about how oud could be fecal to some people. Like at the time, the only oud that I had smelled that was even slightly different from like a clean Western oud was Louis Vuitton's Ombre Nomad. And if you know anything about oud, it's really not funky at all. When I was exploring the house of Amouage, I had smelled silver oud, and it blew my mind because I couldn't believe that anyone would even want to wear this. Fast forward a year later, my addiction to perfumes just skyrocketed. I explored so many houses. I had done more research than in all of my years of high school combined, probably. I was constantly on Fragrantica, researching, writing reviews. I was sampling things. I had smelled thousands and thousands and thousands over the last year or two. My revisit to Silver Oud was what got me into Amouage as a whole. Before Silver Oud, the only Amouage that I had ever smelled was Wood Symphony, which is Opus 5, and Interlude Man. Now, with these two perfumes, I actually did enjoy both of them a lot. And that reminds me, I did have a bottle of Wood Symphony, which I eventually sold. And in that case, I think I would put Wood Symphony on this list, probably at just above Journeyman. I actually did really enjoy that perfume. At the time, it wasn't what I was looking for in perfume. I actually do miss it, and I probably will get it back eventually. But that's a different story. So if you want to add that to the list, then go ahead. So I would say, really, it's 20 Reflection Man, number 19 Reflection 45, 18 Guidance, 17 Journeyman, 16 would be Wood Symphony, and then so on and so on to where we are now. 7 is Silver Oud. Anyways, back to my story. When I was reintroduced to Silver Oud, I came in expecting the same reaction that I had the first time I smelled it. And that's not at all what happened. Now, it made me laugh because it still seemed insane that anyone would want to buy the fragrance. I had it on tester strip, and I was smelling it for like 4 days straight. Just smelling it and smelling it and smelling it, spending time with it. And I didn't have it on skin. I was too scared about all of that. And I decided that I loved the bottle. I don't know what happened. So I guess it took about a year from me gagging to me like wanting a bottle. This happened to show up secondhand for a really good price, about a 90% full bottle. So I picked it up right away. I have no regrets. This is one of the best Amouages I've ever smelled. Ashy, overly smoky, very animalic. Some would say fecal. I would have in the past. I don't really get that note anymore now. Ambery and vanillic heavy is what Silver Oud is. Definitely go sample it. Number 7 is Silver Oud. All right, number 6, we have 2 fragrances, and I combine them in one because they have like the same scent profile, it's different executions. That is Interlude 53 and Interlude Man. The Interludes by Amouage was one of the most polarizing but also eye-opening blends of perfumery over the last like 50 years. It was created by Pierre Negrin. He is just like an immaculate perfumer. So I'm going to describe Interlude Man as a DNA with the original and then describe the very few differences between the X-ray version. Okay, Interlude Man, or known as the Blue Beast, is one of the most Middle Eastern, regal, and oriental fragrances ever created. It opens up with its famous oregano note, and this is a punch, a blast, an explosion, if you will, of oregano. And what this oregano does is it adds this unique, sharp green note that's almost piercing. Oud, leather, spices, everything. Like, I don't even know what's in this. There's probably like 50 notes. There are tons of resins, overdoses, like a Papanax, Alabanum probably. I don't even know. It creates this insanely unique blue smoke accord when you're thinking about it. And like every single perfume on this list, pretty much, this is impossible to describe to someone who has not experienced it yet. And I say experienced rather than smelled because I think this perfume is more of an experience than a smell. You're stuck with it for many hours. As you know, it lasts 16, 18, 20, 24 hours, depending on your skin chemistry. And that's one reason it's called the Blue Beast. The original Interlude goes in a couple of different waves. It opens up with that very green and sharp oregano note. It reminds me of a pizza oven or pizza spices in a way. About 20 minutes after that, there's a very ashy quality coming to this perfume. And I know not everyone gets this, but the ashiness mixed with that green oregano create a burning weed smell to me. That's something a little bit hard to palate for some people, but at the same time, it's something that not everyone gets. I would say maybe 30 to 40% of people who smell this perfume get that like burning weed smell. And the quality is so exceptional that this thing changes like 7 times throughout the wear. So just a quick recap. Opens up with that sharp oregano. 20 minutes later, that kind of burning weed note comes in. And then about an hour, 30 minutes to an hour after that, the resins start to trickle in. And because this is such a 3-dimensional perfume, so obviously not everything's coming at once. There are layers, there are different time sections where things are coming in, and the resins being like a base note, it takes more time to come up to your skin, to come up in the air. A little bit after that, the oregano kind of comes back for a little bit, and then it starts to disappear. And then the next major section of this perfume's lifespan is a vanilla note to my nose. I don't think vanilla is listed, but there's amber in this, and like amber is typically a combination between vanilla and resins. So there's definitely some type of vanilla or resin that's giving off a vanillic feel. And pretty much from hours 7 to whenever this disappears on my skin, which is usually like 16 hours, I get this smooth and gorgeous vanilla. Like it wafts in the air, it just lingers in the air. And sometimes I don't even remember that it's from Interlude, because when you're thinking about Interlude, you're thinking of the orientalness, you're thinking of the oregano, you're thinking of the spices, you're thinking of the smoke, the oud, the leather. You're not thinking of vanilla. But that is such a huge aspect of this perfume that not very many people talk about. So now I'll talk about Interlude 53. Same exact like notes and everything, same perfumer, Pinot Gris. And the only difference is that this is 53% oil concentration. It's crazy. So with a higher percent of oil concentration, the longer the perfume lasts, but the more closely it sits to the skin. This lasts about 16 hours. And the X-ray version lasts about 24 hours on my skin. It will last like 3 months on clothes. It will last through a wash on clothes. Like these things are just incredible. Their perfumery is beyond my understanding. Interlude 53 goes through the exact same steps as Interlude Man, but does it in a prolonged and more stretched out period of time. For example, the original blast of oregano here, which kind of fills the room more, is more toned down, more concentrated, more rounded out in Interlude 53. You're still getting the same smell, but instead of the first 30 minutes of this, where it's an oregano blast, the first 3 hours of this is a smoother, concentrated like version of the oregano. Then the weed, the smoking, burning weed comes in to me after like 45 minutes to an hour here, lasts about an hour, and same vibe, same smell comes here. But it goes from hour like 3 to 6. And again, it's more concentrated. It's a little bit closer to the skin. It's a little bit smoother and more rounded, but it's just as incredible in terms of the smell. Pretty much with Interlude 53, same smell, same steps as the original. It just takes it like slower, rounder, a little bit smoother. And that's not to say that this sits close to the skin. This thing will still fill up a room. It almost doesn't feel as strong, even though I guarantee it is. Obviously, I love these perfumes. They are number 6 on the list. And if you haven't smelled the interludes and you're wanting to get into Amouage, these are like the perfect embodiment of what Amouage is as a brand. So number 6, Interlude Man and Interlude Man 53. All right. It's been a long journey, so if you guys are still watching, I very much appreciate you. We are now officially in the number 5 spot. Now, again, before I just continue this list, every one of these fragrances is incredible. Just beyond what I originally imagined perfumery could be when I first got into it. I just do want to say that Amouage is one of those brands where I don't think anything will ever top it. I lost track of what I'm saying. Basically, Amouage as a brand is phenomenal. I hope to have like every single bottle ever one day, although I know that's very unrealistic. And again, this list tomorrow might be different. Tonight it might be different. While I'm editing this video, I might have wished I had changed some things around. But as of right now, the number 5 spot goes to Opus 7 Reckless Leather. Here's a tip to people who are curious about sampling fragrances. Don't ever sample a fragrance based on someone else's review. On Fragrantica, Reckless Leather is probably the worst rated Amouage by far. I think it's rated about a 3.3 out of 5. Everyone says it's horrible. Everyone says it's nasty, that it smells like curry. And if I were reading that, I may not have ever tried to sample it. But I'm glad I did, because this is one of the best perfumes I've ever smelled in my entire life. Not just from the House of Amouage, but just out of everything I've ever smelled. Reckless Leather is so beautifully crafted, spicy, it's oriental. And with Amouage, so many other perfumes are spicy and oriental, Middle Eastern, blah, 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 they're this, they're that, they're this, right? So all these words are probably jumbling together. However, when you think of spice and when you think of orientalness, this is the first thing that comes to my mind when I'm thinking about Amouage. I'm not thinking about Interlude Man. I'm not thinking about Royal Tobacco. I'm not thinking about Journeyman. I'm thinking about Reckless Leather. I'm not going to lie, this is a challenging one. In fact, this may be some people's least favorite of the brand. I said that about Purpose. I said that about Silver Oud. I'm saying it about this, and there's another one up and coming on the list that I'm going to say it about again. However, this is art in a bottle, and I can't describe it any other way. To me, the comparison that people make with curry is honestly not too far off. Now, it's spicy, like I was saying before, and it's savory. So that's the weirdest thing. This is like a savory gourmand. It's bitter. It has some dark green bitter herbs. It almost feels simmering and alive, like a stew. There's no cumin listed, but like there's a very strong cumin presence in this, that's the main reason why people don't like it. Cumin is just a very controversial note. Another fragrance coming up on this list that utilizes cumin that people also compare to like body odor. And then again, Fate Man by Amouage, I have not smelled. That is supposed to be a very cumin-forward fragrance, and I'm dying to smell that. But my best way to describe Amouage's Reckless Leather is a simmering stew or a simmering curry. And I've said this, again, I have a review about this separately. Not all of them, I will do separate reviews eventually. But in my review of Reckless Leather, I kind of said it almost just smells like cooking ingredients for a stew. With the savoriness, you can almost smell a brewing meat. There's bitter green herbs, there's galbanum, I don't know how you say it, but it comes off a little bit like a parsley vibe or just a scallion vibe, like this dark bitter green cooking spice. I get kind of a sense of cumin and paprika. These just oriental and slightly challenging cabinet spices that are just, that's what makes it so incredible to me. And then the combination makes it so savory that it makes it seem like it's simmering as I'm spraying it or as I'm smelling it. It doesn't feel like a stale old stew. It smells like lifted the top off of a freshly cooked stew or curry or just something like that, and the steam hit you in the face, and everything about that is just incredible to me. Now, to be honest, this is one of the least wearable of the house, just because like a lot of people do get a body odor comparison, right? So even though I love this so much, I can recognize that I don't really want to go around in public smelling like body odor if that's what some people think of this. So this is one that I don't wear too much outside. I just wear it in my house a lot. But it's one that I wish I could wear more because it's such a beautiful piece of art. Oriental, spicy, gourmand, but in like a savory aspect. And it is just a piece of art. So number 5 is Amouage's Reckless Leather. All right, number 4. This is the first sample since number 12 on the list. This is King Blue from Amouage. And King Blue is challenging, right? So I was talking about Royal Tobacco, Silver Oud, Reckless Leather, and Purpose, about how those are very challenging for a lot of people. And this one often comes up as the most challenging perfume ever created by the House of Amouage. First of all, I'm going to get a bottle of this the second I run out. I have 4 of these 2 ml samples. I'm flying through them. I absolutely am addicted to the smell of this perfume. What makes it so challenging is the same Indian Assam oud that is in Silver Oud. There's a really heavy fecal aspect to a lot of people that smell this. And when I first smelled it, I had the same exact reaction as Silver Oud. I gagged. I thought it was disgusting, and I couldn't get any of the other notes that were in this perfume. About 4 months after I smelled King Blue and Silver Oud, I was ordering something on a fragrance discounter, and in order to get free shipping, I had like $8 or $10. And I saw that they had these little 2 mLs of King Blue. So I decided to get one kind of as a joke, just to spray it and just see if my mind would somehow change. And I got it, and I hated it again. My mind didn't change. Again, this was like about 8 months before I was reintroduced with Silver Oud and got a bottle of that. So my nose was still not developed enough at the time. I was just getting punched in the face by that Assam oud. I couldn't get any other thing. It was just like so pungent, so fecal to my nose, and it was making me gag. Over the course of like 2 months, though, I finished the 2 ml sample. Not from skin, really. It was like 90% from tester strip. And then what happened was, like, fast forward 6 months or 8 months until I was reintroduced with the Silver Oud. After I realized I fell in love with that, I decided that I needed to smell King Blue again and find out whether my nose had changed with that. So what I did was, when I went to the store to smell Silver Oud, I smelled King Blue, and from the cap, I was wowed. So what I did was, after really introducing myself to the Assam Oud and getting to know it and understanding that there's so many more aspects to it than just the fecalness that comes across like at first sniff, I bought 8 ml in total of this King Blue, and I just fell in love with it. Like it instantly, from first wearing once my nose was accumulated to the Assam Oud, it shot up on my ranking. So it's at number 4 right now. Could be number 1 tomorrow. It's hard to explain. The only reason I haven't bought a bottle is because, well, first of all, I still have a good 4 or 5 milliliters left. That will last a while, but also it's very expensive. So the exceptional extracts like Interlude 53 and the oud perfumes, so King Blue and Silver Oud, all retail for $550. So even though they are discounted, you're still looking at $250, $350, $400+ on secondhand sites. So no doubt I will buy a bottle of this when I run out. But until then, I'm unfortunately stuck with my samples. But oh my gosh, this thing is just incredible. So yes, King Blue does have that funky Assam oud note, but what it does differently than Silver Oud, it has the most sugary, mouthwatering, and jammy, like fruity marmalade type vibe I have ever smelled. So to my nose, it's so gorgeous. I can't even like talk right now. The smell is just distracting me. In the air, King Blue smells like blueberry jam, blueberry pie, with like a touch of funky resins, but it doesn't smell nearly as interesting. Or sorry, it doesn't smell nearly as funky in the air. It smells amazing. It smells interesting. Like, it's honestly a relatively mass appealing perfume in the air. But the second you get close to this, that Assam oud punches you in the face. If you're not used to that, or if you're not expecting it, that is going to put you off of this perfume. And that's one thing that you really need to like get used to with King Blue. The first time I smelled it, when I was gagging, I saw some people saying that it's the best thing they've ever smelled. And I remember sending them some DMs. I have no clue how you think that this smells good. It smells like straight poop to me. And what 2 different people said was that you need to let the perfume come to you, and you can't go into the perfume. And that sounded so stupid to me. I'm like, there's no way that just letting the fragrance come to me in the air can actually change my mind about the perfume. I just got a little bit on my hand, and it's so good. It's a great way to put it. In the air, King Blue smells like jammy blueberry marmalade, blueberry pie, peach cobbler, sugary fruitiness. And only up close does that funky oud kick in. But what's crazy is now my favorite part of the perfume is that Assam oud. Right now, my 4th favorite Amouage that I've ever tried on skin is King Blue. Number 3, the big number 3. We're almost done, guys. Except I'm going to be honest, I'm going to go into a lot of detail for these last 3. And the 3rd spot is Overture Man. So this fragrance is gorgeous. First of all, look at that juice color. It's a dark orange, which you already know when the juice color is dark, It's going to be a banger. Wow. You know, Overture Man is like, it's one of those perfumes where it's the perfect mixture between something being artistic and wearable, mass appealing and difficult to wear. And all of these, I'm at a loss for words right now. It's such a gorgeous perfume, and I don't even know how to describe it at all. Like I was saying before with Reckless Leather, this is the other perfume on the list that utilizes the note of cumin. When I first got this fragrance, first of all, this was a blind buy too. I don't recommend doing that. I don't know what happened, but it, again, turned out to be one of my favorites. So the opening of this perfume on skin has some funk. It's noticeably funky. The main aspect you're getting in the opening is this like kind of sweaty body odor cumin, stinky, but in the best way possible. That's combined with probably the most gorgeous like cognac boozy note I've ever smelled in any perfume ever. And then there's like a cinnamon vibe, and then a Dr. Pepper kind of aspect to this too. So these perfumes don't smell similar at all, but like there is a little bit of a similar Dr. Pepper cola soda vibe in both Boundless and Overture Man. It opens up with that cumin. It opens up with some funky animal notes, like that's literally listed in the note breakdown as animal notes. Sugary, there's that like Dr. Pepper vibe. And then at the same time, there's cinnamon. And there's this sweet, fleshy grapefruit note. Overture Man is actually one of the ones that I might not go as much into detail about because it's so hard to describe. If you're wondering why I have barely used any, it's not that I've barely used it. I've worn it about 6 times. It's such a strong perfume that you really only need a couple sprays. And I know how I was saying earlier with, what is it? I need to look at my list. Royal Tobacco. I typically like to do no less than 5 sprays whenever I wear something. And that's true with this, but 5 sprays of this lasts you like 24 hours. It's too grand of a smell to wear to school and to wear to work. Everyone talks about Creed Aventus as being like the CEO fragrance. And yes, it has that masculine energy. It's clean, it's fresh, it's a little bit fruity and smoky at the same time. Out of every fragrance I've ever smelled in my entire journey, I think the best CEO fragrance would be Overture Man by Amouage. It's strong, it's rounded, it's a little bit intimidating, but in the same way, it's smooth. And I don't know, it's such a beautiful fragrance. This is one that I think is a must sample from the brand. And because of that, number 3 is Overture Man. Alrighty, it just started to rain, so if that's in the background, I apologize. But number 2 is the most recent bottle to my Amouage collection, and this is Amouage's Epic Man. So I was lucky enough to get a March of 2016 batch secondhand. My best way to describe it is kind of like a fougere aftershave type of fragrance, but it's so much better than that, which is why I have trouble describing it like that. No way I would put it in the same category as Tom Ford's Beau de Jour, which is this very traditionally masculine aftershave barbershop type of fragrance. Epic Man is that and so much more. It's just such a beautifully crafted perfume. The perfume contains oud, it contains castoreum, there's incense in here, and with all the other resins, especially on paper, most people would kind of assume this to be one of the more challenging perfumes from Amouage. The note breakdown, it seems insanely resinous, Middle Eastern, complex. It is complex, it is Middle Eastern, it is resinous, but not in the way that you would assume. When I first smelled this, I sprayed it on skin and it was more green, a little bit cleaner in a way, not like soapy, but cleaner. It was more rounded, it was more tame, more wearable. But you could absolutely detect that oiliness coming from the castoreum. You could detect like the tiniest funk from the oud, and the combination of like all of these notes together, but so being so wearable and masculine, is just so good to me. And that's why I'm putting it at number 2. Green, fougere, oriental and spicy, but smooth, rounded, blended to perfection. Long lasting, but very light at the same time. This thing is just a masterpiece, and if you have not gotten your nose on it, definitely get your nose on Amouage's Epic Man. And last but not least, my current favorite fragrance from Amouage is one of the least talked about from the brand. That is Amouage's Rose Incense. I told you before, when I was talking about Lyric Man, that rose was my favorite note, or one of my favorite notes. And what I also said was that when rose goes into a jammy territory, there's nothing better than that. And that is absolutely what rose incense is. Now, despite the name, and despite what people say about the name, I don't think this is rose and incense. What this is, in the most basic explanation to me, is a very chewy and jammy rose Turkish delight with powdered sugar, powdery vanilla, ink, and resins. Yeah, you heard me, black ink. So there is a black ink note in here, and it's a little bit hard to describe. If you smelled the ink note in Zoologist Squid, it's a little bit similar to that. It's dark, it's textured, and it complements the resins very well. Now, honestly, this isn't one of the most complex from the brand, and in that same aspect, it's like a little bit linear. So what you spray on is what's going to last for 19 hours straight. I don't have a problem with that. This thing is just such an incredible smell, such a good blend. And it just takes everything that I like about perfumery and puts into a bottle. Now, obviously, I've said this so many times, and I'm going to say it again. Pretty much every one of these perfumes on this entire list could be interchangeable with number one. As of right now, Rose Incense is number one. Now, I might be on an oud kick in 3 weeks and think that Silver Oud is the best thing I've ever smelled. In 2 months, I might think Reflection Man is better than everything I've ever smelled, and I might be like, why would I put it in last place? That's how good this brand is, and that's why it is so hard for me to rank this video, and that's also why this video is probably like 2 hours long. Now, I just want to say, as I'm recording this March 3rd, 2026, I still have Jubilation 40 on the way and Beach Hut Man on the way. And I have so many more from the brand to sample. A lot of the men's, for example, Memoir Man, Search, Silver Man, Seal Man, Jubilation 25, Honor, Imitation, Myths, Portrayal, all of the essences, Purpose 50, Timber, Search, Decision. I haven't smelled any of those. I haven't smelled any of the women's either. So I'm missing so many of the brand. I'm missing like 80% of the brand. So if you don't like what's on the list, chances are that I either haven't smelled it or just have a different personal opinion. That's another reason why Amouage is such a loved house. Everyone smells their things differently. All their perfumes appeal to different people, right? For me, Reflection Man's in 19th place. For most people, it will be their number one. For me, King Blue is number 4. For most people, it will be their last place. If you watch this whole thing, thank you so much. This is just a fun project for me, and I've watched so many people ranking all of their Amouages or what they've smelled or their favorites or what they want to smell. Now, also, obviously none of this is sponsored, right? I'm an unknown dude. They're a huge brand, and I would love to get some free stuff in the future, but like, that's not why I do this. I'm into perfumery because that's what I love. I don't try to sell you anything. Most of my fragrances in general are just weird fragrances that most people wouldn't like. Zoologist Camel, Nichoné's Africa Olifant, so many things. Even Mansera, like Black Prestigium, is one that a lot of people don't like. Montal's Queer Oud, oh sorry, that's the wrong one. What is it? Oud Queer d'Arabie. A City on Fire by Imaginary Authors. You get what I mean. I have a bunch of fragrances, and it's just to my style, just to my taste, because that's what a fragrance collection is all about. Fragrances are as subjective as any other artistic category of anything. Anyways, I've been rambling for way too long. Thank you so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. I'm going to go put all my bottles back, put all the samples back, and start editing this long video, however long it is. I'm sorry if this is like a 2-hour long video, but it just goes to show how much Amouage means to me. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.